Could Connor tell us who from the Jets was on his flight home from the NFL Combine?
I can't, but there will be a day where I can on the podcast if I don't decide to save it for the book. I can't.
We're holding Connor to the book in the next
because
2 to 4 years, 5 years.
Here's the thing. It's not fun if it is cool if I say the name, but it's the story, right? Like, you know the story, obviously. Of course you do. And I've been told a lot of people because it all coincided with something happening. So
part of a bigger picture.
Right. It's not fun to just say the name. The story really needs to be written or podcasted.
Long form audio docuseries coming in 2030 for Badlands. You got to stay tuned.
There you go.
All right. Money Mark. Feel like Ridley is clearly above the rest of the realistic free agent options. This makes sense after Evans and Pittman being off the market. Is it feasible to pay Ridley like $18 million per year with all the other needs given our cap situation? Or is a more creative route really the only option? I don't see how one player commanding like 70% of our cap works with all the needs. I'm not sure if that's the, exact math, but I get the general point. Like, Ridley seems to be the clear, at least from a production standpoint, the top available free agent receiver, which means he's probably going to get like that Christian Kirk type contract. And Christian Kirk's been pretty good, actually.
Right.
So I think especially with some of the moves they've made, the Jets have a good amount of cap flexibility where they can pay Ridley and still make a couple other like meaningful moves. The problem with not, and I think they will go after him aggressively. It doesn't mean they're going to get him. He could very well stay in Jacksonville. He could go somewhere else. I think they'll be in the mix. The problem is like, all right, like if we know we're not getting Evans, you're not getting Pittman, you're probably not getting Devontae in this offseason. Seems like Keenan Allen's going to stay put. Now you're not getting Ridley. What is the exact plan at receiver here?
Right.
To like get a lot better? Like, are we going and I don't hate this, but there's risk. Are we going the like Mike Williams and Kendrick Bourne route? Are we going the Darnell Mooney and like Curtis Samuel route? Are we going all in with veterans on the offensive line and drafting Odunze at 10 or Bowers at 10? Are we like adding another meaningful pass catching option at tight end and being a little weaker at receiver? The options could go away pretty quick because once Ridley gets off the board, it's going to be a free-for-all to overpay, and all these guys will get overpaid, but like whatever, you don't have a choice if you're shopping in free agency. What is your other plan? Because the Jets need 2 pass catchers. And one thing I could say about Ridley is like, if he's healthy and he's opposite Garrett Wilson, like he should be a 1,000-yard receiver with Aaron Rodgers. Like, you're confident that he's good enough to do that. Like, where there's like, you have the injury concerns with Mike Williams. And like, I like Kendrick Bourne, but he's like not that kind of player. Like, he's your number 3 receiver. I like Mooney. Not really sure he's that guy. Hollywood Brown has a lot of kind of the similar questions, right?
Too small.
And like, too small. Like we want size. I don't know. Like, I'm not going to be mad if the Jets give Ridley a lot of money because I just feel like Garrett Wilson and Calvin Ridley is a very nice 1-2 at receiver to go with Aaron Rodgers and Breece Hall. And that's a hard offense to stop. It's not – my only thing I don't love is that we've talked about this for a long time, actually. Like, they're kind of similar players. Like, so you're not adding a lot of variance to your receiver room. So my dream is actually like Calvin Ridley and Mike Williams, because then you're adding like that variance. You could play Ridley and Wilson inside and outside, and Mike Williams is just your X outside the numbers, running vertical routes and playing basketball. Because if that's your starting 2, your number 3, you got to find a guy who brings some like variance in size because they're similar players. But what do you think, CR?
Yeah, I don't love paying Ridley, 18 to 20 a year, but you're right. The options start to dwindle really quickly. I mean, keep in mind, he turns 30 next season, like during the season. Like you said, has a similar skill set to Garrett Wilson, which could be good and bad. And then I think you'd have to structure it where only the first 2 years are guaranteed, because after that 4th year, you got to pay Garrett Wilson. Like, we know that already. So, and can you have big money Ridley on the books and then add big money Garrett Wilson on the books? And maybe you're trying to figure out a deal with Breece Hall. Maybe you're trying to figure out a deal with AVT. You already figured out a deal with AVT. You're going to pay Sauce as the number 1 corner in the league. Like, you're starting to balance a lot of number one at their position contracts. And then you hate the money you already have stuck on the books. Like, look at the money that we're looking at this year, right? You talked about the dead money at the top. Restructuring Carl Lawson was insanely dumb. Insanely dumb.
Yep.
I mean, when you look at it now, if Bryce Huff walks, and we've almost mentally prepared that has happened already, you could draw back to some of the failure to be proactive, right? They should have extended Bryce Huff a long, long, long time ago, number one. Number two, the dead money they've accumulated. The constant thing I see with Bryce Huff is, well, you got to go buy up offense so you can't pay Bryce Huff. And the reality is the Jets made their bed where it does feel like they have to do one or the other, but that was bad decision-making that got them there. So I think you do need to have a line with Ridley in the sand for me. But I agree with you that the problem of that is, well, then what else are you going to do, right? Is somebody going to take a 1-year deal here that, you're like, okay, we'll get this vet on a 1 year and we're going to draft one in the 3rd round, right? So hypothetically, go through the vets that would take a 1-year deal. Michael Thomas from the Saints, never healthy, but could still play. I'll say Odell Beckham. Maybe Gabe Davis takes a 1 year.
Gabe Davis is kind of interesting. I feel like we haven't really talked about him at all, but
right.
You can do worse on a flyer.
Right. These aren't great options at all, which all goes back to, you know what I'm going to say. I would much rather trade one of the 2 4th-rounders for Cortland Sutton and be done with it, because the money times up with Aaron Rodgers' window. The cost is low, and he's better, in my opinion, for what they need than all the other options. So then you go into the season with Garrett Wilson, Cortland Sutton, a draft pick in the 3rd round at wide receiver, and we'll see if we get anything out of Lazard, and hopefully continue to develop Gibson and Brownlee. So yeah, it's not that they signed Calvin Ridley and we get on here for an emergency pod and I groan and I'm like, how could they do this? It's just that it feels like it's a little disappointing that they had to pay a good player, elite player money because of the bind they put themselves in.
I agree. It's a bit of a bummer with the limit of options, and it's pretty crazy how quick the Devontae thing just went away. It's like something that was talked about and it's just gone. It's like we're not even discussing it anymore. Badlands is very excited to announce that we are Underdog Sports' newest partner. Connor and I are going to be doing weekly best ball drafts for the Discord, for Patreon. We're going to be leading all that up to Best Ball Mania. We're going to be doing pick'ems on NBA and NHL. We could not be more fired up because both of us love the product, and it's a very straightforward way to use it. We're going to link it in the Patreon. We're going to link it in YouTube. You'll see the link plenty. Or just use promo code Badlands when you sign up. They'll match your first deposit up to $100. And for us, we're going to be in this with our rankings, doing some episodes talking about what we're doing. The goal is to help you guys win when you play here, and also get to compete against us and compete against everyone else in the war room and on the Patreon at all. CR, I know you're already brewing in your head on some different rankings and ways to compete here as we get deeper and deeper into Underdog land.
I think that's the best part, is that when we started the Discord, the whole point is we wanted Badlands to not just be this podcast that people listen to, but an actual interactive community of Jets fans. And since we've built the Discord, we have noticed, there's, a hockey channel, a New York sports channel, all different kinds of stuff. Obviously, people that love to compete with different games like this. So, we are going to have a blast with it, whether it is best ball drafts, whether it is messing around with different stat lines for each game. It's just another way for you and I, Joe, and the entire Badlands community to really have more fun together.
That's it. Download the app, sign up today using code Badlands for a deposit up to 100 matched. That's 4 free entries into Best Ball Mania. A lot of winning to be had. Tap in today. All right, a couple more questions from the Discord before we wrap. And now we're back to the next one from Mr. Slippery, our guy First, happy birthday. Thank you. I'm not going to tell you guys how old I am, but I think I probably told you guys at some point. But it's somewhere
I'm saving my happy birthday for the pod.
It's somewhere in my mid-30s. So
okay.
War Room, I'm not going to give you the specifics there. And I appreciate the follow-up being a solid question. Where do you think Saleh can improve upon this year? Or is he basically set in his ways? Do you see him really focusing on offense, being more aggressive, or better with time management? First off, I got to shout out Robert Saleh for the Roger Saffold of combine appearances, saying he's going, popping in and out for like 6 hours. I need to see photo proof he was there. Like the performative, like, yeah, I went. Like, all right. Like I walked in the office for an hour. I said hi to a couple people and I got the hell out of there. I'm teasing a little bit here. Again, like we're just having some fun with this story. We won't talk about it anymore. And we'll talk a little more on the pod about the combine at large. I think I'm trying to check myself because I've been more optimistic generally with Saleh. I feel like the most people who talk about him, I think both of us kind of had. I think this pod's been a little more Saleh friendly, and we've taken a more of a negative turn in recent months for, I think, some fair reasons. I don't think he's going to find some magic touch on offense. I think he's going to get out of the way and let Aaron Rodgers do his thing on offense, which is probably for the best. And maybe that helps with his ability to be more aggressive and better manage time. Like, I think he'll inherently be more aggressive because Rodgers is his quarterback and because he's going to be in a bit of a desperation mode. That aggression might be like all over the place, but I think he'll generally be more aggressive. The game management will probably, again, just be better of a function of Rodgers being quarterback. I think for the most part, he's going to be the same guy. And being the same guy might allow the Jets to get a few more wins when Rodgers is their quarterback, just because of that alone. I don't think to expect Saleh, like for the light switch to go on and for him to become like just a great all-around coach. No, but can there be incremental progress and can there be a different side of him when there's a better quarterback? Like maybe, like I don't think this guy is like Rich Kotite or
Gase.
Adam Gase. Like I don't believe he's that. And I think he is a really talented defensive mind and motivator of people who play defensive football. But I think he definitely flirted with being like a bit of a caricature, and he has a little bit now. And it's like, it just feels like a tough situation, but winning cures all. And if the Jets start like 5-1, and Rodgers is throwing all over the field and the defense is playing with a lead, like a lot of this stuff gets forgotten about. So, I'm not betting on Robert Saleh to be coach of the year next year, but there's certainly a world where he's the coach in 2025 and we all don't feel like that's an unmitigated disaster. That's how I'll answer it.
Is the best case for Saleh Herm Edwards?
That's not a terrible comparison at all.
It's
and
hard
Herm
to
was
come
like
up with one, but right?
I mean, Herm had a team.
I mean, Herm won a hell of a lot more,
championship.
By the way,
Herm won a division. Herm won playoff games in multiple years. And there was always flaws with him. Jet fans, like in the moment, like didn't like Herm Edwards.
No.
He was always getting criticized for a lot of the same crap as Saleh, like game management, not being able to manage the offense.
Yep.
It was kind of there's some comparisons there. I could see him being that level of coach. And, Herm made the playoffs also with the Chiefs after he left the Jets. So,
right.
I don't know. I can't say in good faith I think the Jets are winning a Super Bowl with Robert Saleh as their head coach. I can say I could see them making the playoffs with him as their head coach. That's what I'd say as of now.
I think that's kind of where I'm at, where he has that Herm ceiling where Herm made it to the playoffs 3 of the 5 years he was here. He never made it past the divisional round. So they could never win that big game. And we don't, for the Jets, like with Saleh, they haven't played in a lot of big games, but they have also fallen flat anytime they've had one.
They've been so bad in every big game. So bad.
So disappointing. I mean, look at it like this. The Raiders game this year, that was a big game.
That was the season in retrospect.
Fell flat. So we'll see. It's, but yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with Saleh. That kind of feels like his ceiling in this scenario.
Yeah. It's a bit of a bummer right now. The vibes may tick up if they could get some meaningful additions to their offensive line to start. Question from Sean Grogan before we wrap. What was the most interesting non-Jets rumor at the NFL Combine?